All right, so 1933 to 1945 was a period of unprecedented evil. This was the Holocaust. Now, if you're under, if you're under 30, do me a favor, raise your hand if you don't know what the Holocaust is. Yeah, I found out that at least my children didn't know what it was on the way to church this morning. So during this time, the Nazi regime, which a lot of you under 30 may not know what Nazis are either, but the Nazi regime systematically murdered 6 million Jewish people. It was a time of immense cruelty and dehumanization where they treated human life as less than nothing. One of the victims of this evil period was a man by the name of Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist. He was imprisoned at 4 different concentration camps, including Auschwitz. In those camps, he was stripped of all of his dignity. He was forced to perform back-breaking labor in freezing conditions and otherwise harsh conditions. He was starved, just like many other people, many other prisoners in these camps. While he was there, he was separated from his pregnant wife, from his parents, from his brother, and later he learned that all of them were murdered in the camps. Now, in the midst of all of this suffering, Dr. Frankl made an observation, and it was that those who were most likely to survive weren't necessarily the healthiest, the strongest, but it was those who had a why to live, something like the hope of reuniting with their loved ones. And he saw that these people who had a why like this could endure almost anything. Now, Dr. Frankl survived the Holocaust, but his contribution to society goes far beyond just his survival. He became a key figure in modern psychology. He developed a form of therapy known as logotherapy. And logotherapy essentially centers on helping people find meaning in life. And some of his primary patients were people suffering from severe depression, people who were considering taking their own lives. And he found that helping them find or even develop purpose in their lives helped them through this really dark time. And through his work, he recognized that purpose is essentially the primary motivational force in human beings. Now, I think that we probably all understand purpose is extremely important to us as people. Albert Einstein, I think, even understood this. When asked about the meaning of life, he said, "The man who regards his life and that of his fellow creatures as meaningless is not merely unhappy, but hardly fit for life." Now, whether you knew who Viktor Frankl was before I started talking, whether you knew or had heard of this quote from Albert Einstein, again, I think you probably already understood that purpose is important to us. To do something without meaning does not feel good. It does not feel like it's worth doing. But understanding that humans need purpose and understanding what our purpose is, well, those are 2 different questions. The question, what is the meaning of life? It's perhaps the oldest question in humanity, right? So, what is the meaning of life? Again, I'm sure that we've all thought about purpose. We've thought about the meaning of life to some degree. We've probably asked, what is the meaning of my life? What's the purpose for my life? And as you know, there are lots of answers out there. There are a lot of people who don't even talk about purpose because they think they've already found it. They think there's not much purpose to life beyond things like seeking fame and fortune. They think those things are measures of success, and if you get as much of that as possible, then that shows that you have been successful and there's great purpose in that. Some would say that the search for pleasure and personal gratification is the ultimate purpose. But I think there are a lot of people out there, probably, I would say the majority of people, at least probably that we come in contact with, they would say that purpose really it just boils down to being a good person. We don't necessarily think purpose is about doing the bad things like personal gratification all the time. Those things can fit in, but as long as you're a good person, you've fulfilled your purpose in life. Now, Dr. Frankl learned about purpose in the midst of some unimaginable suffering and cruelty. But a few thousand years before him, Solomon, who the Bible tells us possessed more wisdom, wealth, and power than anyone else in his time, he learned about purpose from a life of unimaginable pleasure and success. So Solomon was the son of King David, and the Bible says that God gave him wisdom and understanding beyond measure. He wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, and in this book, he essentially tells us about his search for meaning. He says that he started by trying to find meaning in wisdom and knowledge. So if he could just possess as much wisdom or as much knowledge as possible, that would be fulfilling. That would give him purpose. But he says that even after doing that, in much wisdom is much vexation. And he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. So he didn't find a true sense of purpose in seeking wisdom or knowledge. So he turned to pleasure and indulgence. And most of us know Solomon was extremely wealthy. He built great houses. He had vineyards. He had vast wealth. He had lots of servants, lavish possessions. Yet he concludes all was vanity and striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So Solomon also determined that he would dedicate his life to hard work and to achievement, but he learns that all toil and all achievement come from one person's envy of another. This also is vanity and striving after wind. So essentially, after trying every possible avenue, living a life that most people can't even imagine, he comes to this conclusion. He found all of that lacking, and he says, this is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Some versions say this is man's all. What Solomon is saying here is everything that you want to know about life can be boiled down to this right here in regards to our purpose. This is man's all. This is what we have been created for. Now, when we study purpose, like Viktor Frankl did, and we consider the lives of people like Solomon, I think we can learn a lot about purpose. We learn a lot about life. But I want to share two things with you this morning that I think are important for us to understand about purpose. And first, it's that purpose is not found in a self-centered life. And by self-centered, I don't necessarily mean rude or selfish necessarily. I just mean where you put yourself at the center. There's nothing bigger than you. You're at the top. Life is really mostly about doing what makes you feel good, doing the things that you need to do or you want to do. That's self-centeredness. All of us have been guilty of being self-centered. Michael Phelps, probably again, if I were to say anybody under 30 don't know who this is, raise your hand. I'd see all the same hands, right? Yeah, okay. So Michael Phelps, he is the most successful and decorated Olympian of all time. He has a total of 28 medals. He holds the all-time record for Olympic gold medals at 23. The most number of Olympic gold medals in individual events. The most medals of any color. The most gold medals at a single Olympic event. During his swimming career, he set 39 world records. I mean, this guy's extremely accomplished. Because of all of this, he landed deals with huge companies like Visa, Under Armour, Speedo, Subway. He went on to develop his own swimming brand. And in 2021, his reported net worth was $80 million. So Michael Phelps, in terms of success, was successful. I think we'd all agree. He had a goal and he set out to accomplish that goal, but not just accomplish it. I mean, he really knocked it out. of the park, right? Michael Phelps was extremely accomplished, yet despite achieving so much, including the number one thing that he had devoted his life to, Michael struggled with depression. He said that he would experience this depression after every Olympic event. Now, many Olympians actually struggle with the same thing. Despite the outcome of the event, whether they win or lose, if they were not known before, now they're famous. They weren't rich before, now they're rich. It doesn't matter. They would have this sense of purpose climbing up to the event. After the event, they would feel this depression. This is a phenomenon known as post-Olympic depression. Now, Michael Phelps struggled with this to the point of to the point of abusing drugs and alcohol. He also has a clinical depression. And in 2014, it led him to a DUI. Now, Michael's been interviewed multiple times about his depression. He does a lot today for people struggling with this. But in one of his interviews, he said that it's basically you get to like the edge of a cliff, like, cool, now what? Oh, I guess I've got to wait 4 more years to have the chance to do it again. And then he goes on to say, 2008 was my second taste of post-Olympic depression because coming off that high after doing something you set out to do your whole entire life. Right? So this is the idea of feeling like you have purpose and you have meaning, and that ends, and then you crash. Like I said, these Olympians, they deal with this over and over and over again. And again, I don't want to take away from Michael's clinical depression, but what he describes here is that idea of being without purpose. The very thing you've devoted your life to has now come to an end. Now what? He says. That sense of lifelong purpose ending, as you can probably imagine, is pretty devastating, not knowing what to do next, where to go. Now, I think we see the same thing happening in lives of lots of celebrities. I can think of many that kind of fit this. Same picture, these are people who are famous. They've got lots of wealth. You see them on TV. They do interviews with people. They seem like they're happy. Everybody likes them. Yet they struggle with substance abuse, other addictions. I saw in the news just this past week, there was a former Boston Red Sox pitcher who, I think he's in Jacksonville or something, is now facing child-related crimes. And it's just hard to imagine because these are people who seemingly have it all. And they deal with this kind of depression. They deal with loneliness, and some even also go on to take their own lives. Now, I think there are probably lots of reasons why this happened, but I think one very important reason that is a common thread through all of these people is they put their sense of purpose in themselves. Ultimately, it's about achieving the things that they want to achieve, doing the things they want to do. But purpose cannot be found in a self-centered life. Purpose is the idea of thinking outside of oneself, thinking there is something bigger than you. Cannot be found in a self-centered life. Jesus says in Luke 12:15, "Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." It cannot be found in seeking self-centered things. But it's not just a self-centered life that fails to deliver purpose. We can dedicate ourselves to incredibly noble things that are bigger than ourselves, and still find them to be a striving after wind, like Solomon did. Because some people might argue, yeah, well, you can't do those things. You can't just focus on yourself. You got to focus on other people. You can do things like serve others through politics, through charity, right? Or maybe you could devote your life to your family, and there you can find a true sense of purpose. I would say all those things are good. All of those things should be done. But can we find ultimate purpose there? And I think the answer is no, because they are not the ultimate thing. So this brings us to the second thing that we learn about purpose, and that is purpose cannot be found in things of this world, even the good things of this world, because they are not ultimate. So, for example, if you place your ultimate purpose in a political party or some ideology that you think is serving order and justice and will make the world a better place, that's a great cause. I think there's a lot of importance to those things, but an imperfect human system, which is the only thing that will ever be created by people, by politics, an imperfect human system is not the ultimate source of justice nor peace. You can win great political victories, but there will always be people that disagree. And so, unfortunately, one day you'll die having served this political cause all of your life, and you won't know if the cause will continue. Many causes have come and gone. We know that. Many kingdoms have risen and fallen. But this idea of serving politics or a political ideology is fleeting and finite. And ultimately, the only thing that the only perfect society can be found in God's eternal kingdom. So think about it real quick. Especially over the last few weeks, how many of us have been really quick to have passionate political discussions, but pretty slow to have spiritual discussions? And myself included. Don't you think this tells us a little bit about where our priorities are? Putting our hope and trust ultimately in a political cause is misplaced, because the government, no matter what we come up with, will never be able to do what the gospel can. The very best way to affect lasting change in people, if that's our goal, is to see the world become a better place, is not through a new law or through a new series of laws or anything we can come up with, but the best way to do that is through a new heart. And the gospel is the most powerful tool at our disposal. Unfortunately, it's not political videos or posts that we share on Facebook. It's the gospel. And this is precisely why our purpose must be found in it and not in something like politics, because the gospel is the only thing that can address humanity's deepest problem and then offer an eternal solution. So as good as politics may be, it's not ultimate. But let's say your ultimate purpose is to solve the world's problems through charity. Again, I think that's a noble goal. There's a lot of good that people have done in the name of charity. Maybe some of us here are recipients of charity, and we're thankful that there are people who have decided to do those kinds of things. But again, it's not ultimate. Charity is not the ultimate source of goodness, nor the ultimate solution to the problem. Kind of like politics, if you devote your life to a charitable cause, one day you'll die, and you don't know if that cause will continue either. You will have done a lot of good, but you don't know what will happen after. You'll feel like there's more to be done, and you won't know if it'll get done. A life dedicated to charity alone is not enough. When charity, though, is rooted in serving God, well, then we find a much deeper meaning. And I would argue that it's more fulfilling, because then we are serving the ultimate source of good, which is God, the one who in the end, He can see that all those things are made right. And then when we do charity in the name of God, we have a much more fulfilling purpose and a much better sense of completion. Now, if we turn to family as the ultimate purpose, of course, that's great. I love my family. And I know all of you in here, you love your family as well. The world needs good parents, needs good grandparents, aunts, uncles, Family is extremely important. We need good children because one day the children have to take care of the parents, right? So family is really important. It's a very good thing. We should definitely be devoted to our families. Family should be one of our priorities. But again, family is not the ultimate source of love. If family is the ultimate sense of purpose, what about those without a family? What about the orphan? What about the widow? Does their purpose die when they no longer have a family? If that's where we put our ultimate sense of purpose, then it would. Human love, as good as it is finite and it's imperfect. But I do think that it is a reflection of a higher, perfect love. And so when we place our purpose in something that can pass away, like our families, we set ourselves up for an emptiness. But when we place our purpose in something greater than that, even when our family is gone, we still have meaning. We still have a reason to continue. So what is that ultimate thing? That ultimate thing, that ultimate greater thing is God. So Psalm 90 verse 2, that's what it says down there at the very bottom. It says, "Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God." God is the only thing that is truly infinite and unchanging, and therefore is the only thing that we should have our true sense of purpose in. All those good and earthly things like charity and family and politics and anything else you can think of, I think there is a place for them in serving God. But they are a means. They are not the end. When we serve God and then do those things, they now have an eternal weight. There's much more importance than in doing those things than if they're one day going to pass away. So then when we think about Solomon's final conclusion, fear God and keep His commandments, it's not anything complicated. It's not some philosophical riddle that we can't solve. It really just boils down to those two things: fear God and keep His commandments. Now, the idea of fear here, Solomon is not really referring to the idea of being terrified or scared, although Hebrews 10:31 does say that it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. I mean, think about the Almighty Being. To consider His wrath is a terrifying thing. But what Solomon is talking about here is the idea of reverence and respect, of awe. It's the opposite of self-centeredness, because self-centeredness it is the idea that you think that you are big. Fear, in this sense, is when you know that you are small, right? And it's the idea that I've felt, the feeling that I felt when I look at a storm outside, that you see the wind blowing the trees in a way that just makes you feel small. When you look at a big storm like this rolling in, I know it's hard sometimes to see it like this unless you're at the beach or somewhere out west because of all the trees. But if you get the chance to see this in person, it really does make you feel kind of small. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but I imagine that's what it would feel like to stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon and just see how big and vast it is. I'm sure you'd feel kind of small. Isaac Newton, I think, had this in mind when he said, "This most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being." This is the fear of God that Solomon's talking about. This respect, this reverence, knowing that He is great and you are not. He is worthy to be the center of your life. Keeping His commandments is the second thing that Solomon mentions, and it's really just the practical outworking of this kind of fear. Psalm 111:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All those who practice it have a good understanding. His praise endures forever." I love that idea. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This is where you need to start, with this kind of reverence and respect of God. This obedience to God's will that Solomon is talking about, it is how we live a life of purpose. Our purpose is found in God, and then following His will is how we fulfill that. In doing that, we can't invent our own will. We have to follow the instructions of the one who created us for a purpose. So, I want to ask everyone here to consider, where have you been looking for purpose? If you've been searching for it in earthly things like your career, even your family, your finances, politics, charity, then I hope that today at least you're starting to realize that true purpose cannot be found there. Searching after those things will leave you feeling like Solomon, like you're striving after wind. I think Jesus' words echo through the ages when we really consider them. He says this in Mark 8:36-37, "For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for a soul?" So this morning, we are about to sing a song. We're about to stand up and sing. And if you're here not knowing if you've been fulfilling that purpose, you felt like you're striving for something that can never satisfy you, I want to offer you an opportunity to find purpose in God. He's the one who created you. He's the one who gave you purpose. The Bible is clear on how to do that. It tells us really that this is a choice. We can choose to serve ourselves. We can choose even to serve other people, or we can choose to serve God. That's a choice. We're in total control of that choice. So I want to invite you to make the choice to turn from a life where you've lived for yourself, you've sought out the things that you think are most needed or most wanted for yourself, and turn to a life of serving God who can offer true purpose. So if that's what you want to do, I'll be up here. I know at least one of the elders will be up here. When we stand up and sing, you can come talk to one of us or catch us after, but please consider that today, and don't leave if you have questions about it. Come ask us, and we'll be glad to tell you what you can do to find that true purpose, what the Bible says you can do. So let's all stand and sing together.